Hello, welcome back to the VDC space. So today we're going to be modeling a weather station for a solar PV farm in Revit. So the level of detail, we're just going to keep it simple from 200 to 250, and we're just going to include some indicative elements of a weather station for a solar PV farm, such as the jukebox or the waterproofing case, the solar panel itself, some mounting structural elements, and also the rain gauge, and also the weather sensor. Now, before I get started, I would like to ask you guys to please like, subscribe, and share. And if you are interested in more thorough and much more exciting projects and tutorials, you can join my membership. And also, if you want the project files of these tutorials, you can actually join my Patreon. Now, without further ado, let's start with our project. So the first thing is I'm just going to create a new family. So I'm going to go to new and say family. And then the template I'm going to go with it is the metric specialty equipment. So I'm going to say open, and let's just close this one down. So the first thing is we're just going to establish our reference planes in order for me to establish where everything is going to be set. So I'm going to go to the front elevation, and let me just extend this and then lock it again. Go to create and say reference plane. You're going to place it right on top, and then this you're going to offset by 1500, and then you're going to select it, copy it further up by let's say 500, and then another one by 1000 millimeters. So the next thing is to nest families into this template. So we're going to start with the structural components or the mounts. So I'm going to go to insert and say load family, and then I'm going to go to metric library UK, and then go to structural columns first, and say steel British standards, and then go to circular hollow section and say open. So the size I'm going to go with is let's go with 139.7 by 5 and say okay. Then you're gonna go to create and say component, and then you're gonna place your column right there. Just make sure you change your level of detail to fine so that you can see also the thickness, the outer and the inner diameter. So after this, you're gonna go to the front elevation, change this to fine again, and then select it. And then when you scroll up under modify column, you're gonna select attach top or base. Make sure your constraints are set to top under attach column, and then you're gonna select your reference plane, and then it's gonna increase in size. So after this, the next thing we're gonna do is I'm just gonna go to the reference level, and then the next family I'm gonna nest is the jukebox. So I'm gonna go to load family, and by the way, I'm gonna leave the link in the description in order so that you guys can download these families. So I'm gonna go where I save my family. So there you go. So I'm gonna load in the family, go to create and say component, and then I'm just gonna place it right there. So after I place it, I'm gonna go to the front elevation, and as you can see, this is where it's set. So I'm gonna move it right in the middle, and then move it towards this reference plane. So if I open up the 3D view, this is what we have so far. Okay, so the next thing is I'm going to place some structural framing which are going to act as a mount for our solar panel. So in order for me to do that, I'm just going to go to insert and say load family, and then I'm going to go to metric library UK content and say structural framing, go to steel, and then British standards, and then I'm going to choose the rectangular hollow section, or actually let's go with square hollow section and say open. So the size I'm going to go with is the smallest one, which is the 40 by 40 by 2.6, and say open. So after this, I'm going to go to the left elevation, change this to fine again, and then this is where I'm going to establish my mount for my solar panel. So I'm going to go to create and say component, and then I'm just going to start modeling from this point. So let's just measure this. This is If I use this, I'm going to measure from there until there. So it's 139.7. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to establish my reference planes. I'm going to set this to 139.7 divided by 2, which is 69.9. And then I'm going to place some reference planes, which are going to make it easier for me to snap my structural framings for my solar panel mount. Okay, so if I go to create again and say component, I'm going to start from this point, take it to the right by 500 millimeters, and then I'm going to place another one that's going to the top and make it 500 also. This one's supposed to be vertical. Why is it slanted? Okay, let's just align. So I'm going to align it like that and unjoin. Actually, let's do this. So I'm going to place it randomly there and make it 500, select it, and then I'm just select it, and then I'm just going to move it from this point towards that point. Okay, why is it slanted like that? Let's adjust it. Let's see, I'm going to move it again, and then it becomes okay, it's fine. I know what to do. So I'm just gonna go to the front, the left elevation, and then let's place another one which is diagonal. So I'm gonna start from this point. Actually, let's go to, I'm gonna place some reference planes. So I'm on the reference level on the floor plan. I'm gonna place reference planes, one on each side. And then this one I'm gonna offset by, let's say 250. And then another one by 250. Okay, so I'm gonna name this one L, and then this one I'm gonna rename it R. So if I go to the front elevation, I'm gonna say create and say component, and then this is my L. So I'm gonna place this structural framing at 500, and then another one by 500 this side. I'm gonna place another one like that, and then I'm gonna move this one towards this reference plane and join, and then while it's still selected, mirror it towards the other side. So this is essentially how it looks. So this one, I'm gonna have to nudge it. I'm gonna go to the left elevation. Let's select these three. So I'm gonna go to the left, and then I'm just gonna nudge it towards that point. Perfect. So this is how it looks. So I'm going to go back to the left elevation and say create and say component. I'm going to place a diagonal one, which is going to be running like that. No, from say undo from that point and then towards that point. Okay, so let's see how it looks. I'm going to select it, go to the front elevation, and then obviously I'm just going to move it towards this point and join it, and then mirror it towards the other side, and then it's going to refine itself like this. So let me just remove this, go to the left and say component, and I'm going to set my reference to, so it's going to reference, okay. Let's say set. I'm going to set my reference plane to reference plane L and say OK, component, and then I'm just going to place it like that. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to select it, go to the front elevation, and then let's mirror this towards the other side. So if I go to 3D view, this is how it looks. Okay, so this one, I'm just going to copy, select it, go to the front elevation, and then I'm just going to copy it towards the top and place it like that. Okay, so after this, okay, this one I'm going to select, go to the reference level, and then I'm just going to copy from this point and then towards that point. Perfect. All right, so the next thing is to place our solar panel. So for me, I'm just going to load in the one I downloaded from BIM Objects. So I'm gonna leave a link in the description, like I said, and so I'm just gonna refine this one a little bit. So if I go to component, I'm just gonna randomly place it and say select it and say edit family. So if I go to the reference level and I'm gonna assign the parameters that the owner has assigned towards the dimension. So this is gonna be depth, and then this one is gonna be width. No, it's this one is gonna be width, and then this one is gonna be is it yeah is depth. Okay, so I'm just gonna change the width to 500, press enter, and then the depth also to 500 and press enter. And as you can see for the width, this hasn't changed, so I'm gonna press AL for align. I'm gonna align it like that towards the inside, and then align this one first, and then align this one second, this extrusion second. Okay, so if I open up the 3D, this is how it looks. So the next thing is I'm just gonna say work plane based, check this, and then uncheck the always vertical, and then I'm just gonna load it back into uh, our our family. So I'm gonna deselect it and say create component, and then make sure placement is set to place on face, and then you're gonna select this face of your structural framing. Place it like that, and then obviously when you go to the front elevation, you can just manually adjust it. And then when you go to the left elevation, obviously you can perfectly adjust it right in the middle like that. Okay, so this is how it looks. Right, so the next thing is I'm just gonna create a base plate. So I'm gonna go to the front elevation, the reference level, go to create and say extrusion. I'm gonna place a random rectangle like this. And then this rectangle, I'm just gonna offset it perfectly from each side. So on this side, I'm gonna make it 150. So essentially it's gonna be 300 by 300. And then this one, I'm gonna make it 150, and let's make it 300. Say finish, go to the front elevation, and then drag this down, place it like that. And then the thickness of this, I'm just gonna make it 10. Go to the 3D view. The next thing is I'm just gonna place some bolts, but before that, let's assign a material. So I'm just gonna make this one steel or metal. Yeah, I'm just gonna go with metal and say apply, and then okay. The next thing, I'm just going to load in some bolts that we have created on the previous tutorials. So, but before that, let's just place some reference planes like that, so that we make it easier on ourselves to place the bolts. Okay, so this one, let's offset this one from the outside by, let's see, 75. No, actually 50 is fine. And then this one also, let's offset it by 50. And then I'm just gonna remove these ones because we're no longer using them. And okay, this one I'm gonna offset by 50. And then this one also, this side, I'm gonna offset by 50. All right, so the next thing is I'm just gonna load in my family, my bolt family that I've created. So remember the tutorial of the elastomeric bearing, just refer to the tutorial. This is where you can generate that bolt family. So after opening it, I'm gonna go to component, and then I'm just gonna place my bolts there where the reference planes intersect. After that, I'm just gonna select all of them, and then I'm just gonna nudge it down and place it perfectly on top of our base plate. So wait, what's the other ones? These ones, I'm sure they're at the top. Let's select them and then nudge it perfectly like that. All right, so this is how it looks. So the next thing is we're gonna create some, I'm gonna place another structural framing at the top. So I'm gonna go to insert and say load family. So I'm gonna go to with a metric library, UK contents, and say structural framing, and say steel, and then British standards, and say rectangular hollow section, and say open. So the size I'm gonna go with for this one is, let's go with 120 by 60 by 10, and say open. Create and say component. I'm just gonna place it right on this side and then offset it by, let's say, 500 mils. Go to the 3D view, and then if I select it, I'm just gonna go to the cross section and then change the cross section to 90. And then I'm gonna select it, go to the reference level, and then I'm just gonna nudge it back to its position perfectly like that. And then if you go to the front elevation, because it's a beam, you're going to have to adjust it. So I'm going to punch in random numbers for the start level offset and end level offset so that I can just move it freely towards the correct position at the top. So I'm going to place it like that. And then I'm just going to move this by another, let's say 100 mils. And then this one, I think it's fine right there. So I think we have yeah, I think it's fine right there. So the next thing is let's just close this down and then open it again. So the next stage is to place our weather sensor. So this one also I've got it from BIM objects. So I'll leave the link in the description so that you guys can download that. And so it's what is it, the weather sensor. I'm gonna say open. And so I'm gonna go to create and say component. And then this is also phase based. So if I scroll and then hover over the top of this structural framing, it's gonna allow me to place it on top like that. So I'm gonna place it like that. And if you go to the left elevation, and you can just nudge it perfectly so that it can be placed perfectly on top of your structural framing. So the next step is to create like a steel plate so that you can place your rain gauge on top of that. But for that, I'm not gonna create it as a separate family. I'm just gonna create it as a right inside this template. So, but before that, let's just create a rain gauge, a simple one as a separate family. I'm gonna go to family, and actually I'm gonna create the plates inside this family also. So for our rain gauge, I'm gonna go to, I'm gonna say extrusion circle. So I'm gonna place it right in the middle. And then the size of this, I'm just gonna make it 100. And then the outer diameter, I'm gonna make it 105. And then I'm gonna say finish, go to the front elevation. And then I'm just gonna drag this towards the top. And then I'm just gonna measure this gap, select the bottom of this so that I can nudge it and adjust it and make it 30. So the entire depth of this, I'm gonna make it 300, and then remove these. So I'm just gonna add the base of this steel um, uh, silo. So I'm gonna go to extrusion and then place another one right in the middle like that, which is gonna be a solid, and say finish, go to the front elevation. And then I'm just gonna drag this towards the bottom. So the thickness, I'm gonna make it 10. And then I'm just gonna drag this towards the top of this. So let's just join the geometry. And yeah, that's perfect. So the next thing is to create some supports which are going to be supporting this small little cylindrical shape. So I'm going to go to sweep and say sketch path. I'm going to offset it by, let's say, 80. Place it like that. That then at, at an L shape. So it's going to be going down by 30 and then to the left by 50 mils. Say finish, edit, profile, go to the reference level of the floor plan, and then you're going to place a rectangle like that. And then this rectangle, you're going to offset by, you're going to make it 10 millimeter thickness. And then on each side, you're going to offset by 25, and then it's going to be 50. And okay, let's reduce the thickness and make it 5. Say finish, finish, open up the 3D view, and this is how it looks. So I'm going to select it, go to the front elevation, and then mirror it towards the other side. Okay, so after this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the 3D view, select all of these, and then just change the material to aluminum and load in aluminum, apply, and then okay. So after this, I'm gonna go to the reference level, and then I'm just gonna add a plate extrusion. So I'm gonna place my plate like that, and then from that point, I'm gonna offset by 50. Actually, let's make it, yeah, 150 is fine. And then from there, I'm gonna make it, let's make it, I think 315 is fine. And then I'm just gonna nudge this one. Let's make it 115 this side. It's fine. And then it's gonna be um, 230 in total. Right. So I'm gonna say finish. Go to the front elevation. I'm gonna drag this down towards the bottom of our supports. And then the thickness of this, I'm just gonna make it 10. And then I'm gonna place another one. Actually, let's see. This is the front. So I'm gonna rotate this. Let's actually, no. Yeah, it's fine. So I'm gonna go to, while I'm gonna go to the front elevation and say create and say extrusion. So I'm gonna place other plates which are running diagonal like this. So I'm gonna make it 150 going down. And then I'm gonna place another one, which is gonna be running like this and say finish. And then the thickness of this, I'm gonna make it 10. Go to the 3D view. So let's just drag it towards, say undo. Let's just drag it towards this end. And then the thickness, we're gonna make it 10. Select it, go to the reference level, let's mirror it towards the other side. So I'm gonna change this to realistic and then select these 3 extrusions and then change it to the material to aluminum. So I'm gonna have to add another one. So let's go to the left elevation, actually the front elevation. So this one is gonna be running down like that. Let's make it 5 millimeter in thickness, place it like that, say finish. Go to the reference level, let's drag it towards that side, and then let's drag this one towards that side. Select it and then change OK, or we can just say join. Perfect. So I'm gonna load it in. Let's make it shared, and then you guys can name it to rain gauge. So I'm just gonna load it in. I already saved this family, so if you want the file, you can get it from my Patreon. So I'm gonna place it like that. Go to the front elevation, and then I'm just gonna drag it on to the top towards the appropriate position. So I'm gonna place it right there, and obviously I'm just gonna nudge it so that it interacts well with our steel column. So this one also you can nudge it and place it perfectly like that, and go to the 3D view, and this is what we have. So yeah, that's it. Yeah, I tried to replicate something I'm seeing on the one of the companies that produce one of these. But like I said, the level of detail we were gonna keep it simple, LOD 200 to 250. But yeah, I think on the upcoming tutorials we can take it much further than that. But thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys can implement some of the things I'm teaching you on your project. And I hope this was very much an exciting thing to do. So yeah, if you want more exciting projects, you can actually join my membership. If you want those files, you can join my Patreon. And yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you on the next tutorial. Peace.